The top wrestler in the class of 2026, Bo Bassett, commits to the Iowa Hawkeyes, but the gap between Penn State and Iowa is still massive.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, and we welcome back the voice of Penn State wrestling. Jeff Byers also is the morning show host over at 98.7 The Fox Sports Radio in State College. You can check out his work down below in the description outside of wrestling. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, Jeff, in this conversation, we are going to preview Penn State versus Michigan, another Bryce Jordan Center dual meet with some key matchups there, but Penn State should come out on top, right? That's the expectation. But the big news is Bo Bassett in the state of Pennsylvania, top pound for pound wrestler, depending on which rankings you look at, top 3 consensus overall, commits to the Iowa Hawkeyes over Penn State, David Taylor in Oklahoma State, and Virginia Tech as well. But I don't think this changes anything in the power dynamic of where Penn State is versus where Iowa is. So congrats to the Hawkeyes pulling on. This is very reminiscent of Spencer Lee committing to Iowa once upon a time. But I don't see how this changes the dynamic of anything, at least for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big deal for the Iowa program. This is certainly a nice feather in the cap. And, you know, it has lots of star power. I think there's a big draw there for fan appeal. And I think he's obviously a very talented and very driven competitor. So I think this is a great get for Iowa. It would have been a great get for whatever program got him. But, yeah, with the way Penn State is rolling right now, again, do I think this shifts the favorite status away from Penn State in terms of the team race anytime soon? I don't. But listen, the one thing you have to watch now is there any domino effect, either with his teammates from Bishop McCord or just other top prospects? So we'll see. I think it makes it probably exciting. I think more exciting for college wrestling fans in general to see what happens here over the next couple of years with Bassett going to Iowa on the heels of David Taylor taking the Oklahoma State job, of course, before this season began. So I think that the fact that you have some big names and impactful individuals going to schools other than Penn State is probably just going to add to the intrigue and the interest in the sport as a whole. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
There's at least the illusion of parity here, right? Because we're sitting here talking about how Penn State's still going to reign supreme, but Bo Bassett at least, kind of just adds a potential domino effect, right? Because Jax Forrest and Melvin Miller, Penn State has Sam Herring in the fold for the class of 2026, who is one weight class below a Bo Bassett here. So we're talking about a class of 2026 wrestler, right? But this is somebody that can be the face of your program. That was something that he talked about, how he didn't know if he wanted to go to a school that had this long historical background in wrestling, because that's what I thought made Virginia Tech and Rutgers appealing, were that they kind of needed that face of the program, somebody to kind of raise the bar for them and set a new precedent, whereas Oklahoma State, Iowa, and now Penn State presently don't exactly do that. Jeff, let me follow up with this. Did Bo Bassett fit in immediately into this Penn State lineup? Because I've had a few live reactions to the news when he had a Final Four and then ultimately made the commitment here, in just trying to project in my head at 149, 157, where he's most likely going to end up. Maybe it's 165. We're talking about a junior wrestler, for crying out loud, at high school. That Shane Van Ness and Tyler Kasak and Mitchell Messenbrink would be at all 3 of those spots. There isn't an avenue for Bo Bassett to be a 4-year starter at Penn State unless he at least goes through a redshirt season.
Yeah, and I think, generally speaking, that's what Penn State's preference, and I think most schools' preference is to redshirt even superstars like Ferrari this year with Iowa. So do I think Bassett would have been a 4-year starter at Penn State? Yep. I think he would have been a
with a red shirt
starter no matter where he went. Um, now, would he be exactly where he thinks he wants to be in terms of the weight? Might he have to move up a weight class or down a weight for a year to forge his way into the lineup? I mean, that's possible. It's possible that could happen at Iowa too. So it is a great get. I guess I just don't understand. And I haven't even gone online tonight to look. I don't understand. Especially in today's world. I've never understood, period, why fans bash an 18-year-old or whatever age, 17, 18, 19 year old for deciding that a school other than the school they root for is where he wants to spend his future and where he wants to go. And listen, these days, and I'm expecting Bo Bassett will go have a fantastic career at Iowa and be there the entire time. But the fact is, with the transfer portal being what it is, I don't think Bo Bassett wants to burn any bridges, and I don't think the coaches or wrestlers of these programs, and I think the fans should be mindful. You don't want to burn any bridges either. You don't know if things don't work out, if a kid gets homesick. And again, I'm not predicting any of that with Bo Bassett. I want to be clear. But in general, like if a kid goes somewhere, okay, fine. And then there's a chance that somewhere down the road he comes back. And if he doesn't, it's okay. He can go have a great career elsewhere. And, I know Penn State fans sometimes, if a kid goes somewhere else, it's like, well, there goes your best chance for winning titles and all of this. Listen, Penn State obviously has a terrific formula working. Here's a fact for you, though. A talented kid, a kid that is good enough, can go win a national title at Iowa, at Virginia Tech, at North Carolina State, at Bloomsburg, at Clarion. You don't need to go to the big name brand schools, and Bassett obviously did here. I understand that. But over the years, we have seen great kids, great national champions come from schools from all over the place. So, the fact that a kid doesn't choose Penn State or Oklahoma State or whatever it may be does not mean that kid is not going to go on and have a wildly successful collegiate career. And certainly Bo Bassett has all of the tools that you would expect. He is going to have a great career. Now, whether or not, he's a 3 or a 4-time champion, listen, there's a lot of things that go into that, and, just let everything play out. But the kid is obviously a tremendous talent. There's a reason every school in the country wanted to have him commit to their school. And again, it is a great get for Iowa. There's no two ways about that.
Well, we started to initially talk about the impact here, and sometimes when something like this happens, losing the top recruit, especially when it's in your own backyard, is time for a reality check. Look in the mirror. No, Penn State's not changing its plan with the way that it approaches its development of wrestlers or the recruitment. We'll talk about that more on the other side of this break. And today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Are you looking for tickets to that next big event, whether it's a concert, comedy show, sporting event? Finding the right ticket at the right price, it can be a headache, but with Gametime Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Gametime Picks, the app, the website, gametime.co, does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching through endless amounts of tickets. Ticket listings just go on and on. Gametime Picks takes care of that. Here's why you'll love it. The curated deals make it super simple. You'll find great tickets at a great price. No more sifting through thousands and thousands of options. You can get the super deal. For a prime seat, you'll get incredible value. It's a steal. And then the game changer of it all. The seat view feature, before you hit buy, you can actually see your point of view from where your seat is, especially if you've never been to a venue. That is game changing. It's so reassuring. Best part, you're covered with Gametime's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something does come up. Are you ready to make your next event even better? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That is code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Penn State's recruiting plan, at least the way it is interesting to me, Jeff, because it comes from the frame of, hey, we don't want to put pressure on a recruit or anything like that. And I asked Cale Sanderson about the recruiting approach. And in this day and age of NIL and the transfer portal, where there are so many other factors that you have to compete with, and Penn State's not only cranking out stronger recruiting classes, it's just in general, Penn State's setting the bar of expectations so much higher from the fact of, yes, the on the mat results to the actual recruiting classes themselves. NIL and the transfer portal haven't been around very long. Penn State seldomly uses the transfer portal, aside from, unless I'm mistaking anybody else, simply Aaron Nagao, right? And we know that's an individual case why that hasn't exactly worked out. But Aaron Nagao still competes every day and makes himself better and makes his teammates better. My point is that Penn State doesn't take a deep dive into the portal and goes and builds this one-time roster and everything else. They stick to the fundamentals. So no, they're not going to change anything because it's worked for the past decade plus, and it's actually proven to be the more successful avenue against these things like the portal and weaponizing NIL.
Yeah, and listen, Penn State has been strategic with its portal use. Bernie Truax and Max.
That's true. Bernie Truax, of course.
Yeah, Max Dean obviously had a big impact, and and Greg Kirkfleet going back a ways. So listen, Penn State is going to do whatever it can to make its roster the best it can be. So it's not that Penn State isn't going to, if they feel there's a transfer who wants to come here and they feel would be a good fit, they are not going to turn those opportunities away. And I don't think any of these programs, Iowa, Oklahoma State, Penn State, and really any of the other D1 programs, nobody's out there looking to make their living on transfer portal only. But you're absolutely foolish if you're not looking at the transfer portal and seeing where, hey, maybe we have a hole here that could be plugged for a year or two. Maybe we have an injury here, and we can go find somebody that can help out. So Penn State is looking at that just like everybody else, and if they find a fit, they're going to take it just like everybody else, and they have. But again, you want to be strategic, you want to be smart about it. And at the moment, you have 10 guys ranked in the top 7. There's not a whole lot of reason for Penn State to be looking around and trying to find the next best thing, because generally speaking, they have the next best thing in the lineup. So, Penn State is in great position for long-term success, sustained success. And, again, would they have loved to have had Bo Bassett? Yes. Again, it is a great get for Iowa. I think Iowa did a great job on the recruiting front in getting him. But again, wrestling is you got to be successful. You've got to get, the general rule has been you got to go out and get 4 kind of elite wrestlers, and then try to supplement with a few others that can make, potentially the All-American round. That for decades was that was the recipe for giving yourself a chance to win the national title. What Penn State is doing right now is just unprecedented. And, the time we're in right now is unprecedented, with the ability, or at least the permission given to go out and give 30 scholarships, so you can build that depth significantly beyond what you were able to in the past. And I think Penn State, again, is in great shape. It's not it's a recruiting loss, but I don't think when you look at the projected lineup here for the next 4 or 5 years for Penn State, it's hard to say that this looks devastating in terms of the impact overall on the program.
Well, no, because if you look at the class of 2025 cycle, Marcus Blaze is the number one overall pound for pound recruit, and PJ Duke is number two. And then depending on who you ask, those two alternate. So it's Bo Bassett in 2026, but Penn State has Blaze and Duke 1 year ahead of Bo Bassett, respectively. So it's not like this is something that routinely happens. Penn State lands a punch, Iowa lands one back. Jeff, I'm eager to get your thoughts on NIL, and without, of course, Penn State abides by success with honor. And I think I want to share my thoughts and try to clarify them in some sort of sense, because Penn State is paying NIL. I've never gone on the record to say that, oh, they're not doing that, whether it's football, basketball, wrestling, or any sport. No, they are using NIL strategically, but it's not, okay, we're going to give you a lump sum of cash up front to entice you to, A, visit. Some schools do that routinely in the SEC. That's football though. But the schools where they will do that, where they will just throw money around left and right just to get a recruit's attention. But they say, we are going to help you maximize your NIL value when you get here. So it's not about upfront cash and lump sums of money from the university. It is more so about what we can do to make you as appealing as possible as somebody who is in the field of business. It's about making your business relationships better and you as a marketable athlete to, trade your services to a willing and able sponsor.
Yeah, but listen, I mean, the world is changing and changing quickly, and make no mistake, Penn State is doing everything it can do to be competitive in football, wrestling, and every other sport with the best of the best that are out there in terms of NIL money, being able to look at the transfer portal and pluck the guys that you think can help your program, up and down. Again, it's a competitive world, and folks can bemoan that, man, that's too much money to be spending. That's fine. You can bemoan it all you want. Do you want to be competitive? Do you want to go out and try to win and compete for national titles? If you do, you better be playing in the world that we're living in. And so, again, I don't know the exact numbers with any of this stuff that is flying around, but I can tell you Penn State is doing everything it can to be competitive, to be right there with whatever Oklahoma State, Iowa, or whoever else is in the game is throwing out there. And again, you cannot like the system, but if you're going to try to win in the system, you better be playing it to at least your highest capability. And so, it's something that I think Penn State is constantly looking at and trying to figure out ways that it can improve those opportunities. And yeah, I do think Kale is very careful and not over promising anybody, and also looks for the wrestlers and the families that are kind of team first mentality. That's been a big part of, I think, the equation for success, team success at Penn State, is they have had a lot of outstanding individuals who really have bought into the idea that, yep, it's nice to have that individual success. It's part of what I want out of the experience, but being part of a team and being able to contribute and make the team stronger is as important, if not more important. And I think, pretty consistently, very consistently, Penn State has been able to do that. And that's not to say that Iowa isn't doing that or can't do that, or Oklahoma State or any of these teams, but I think that is, part of the equation. But listen, NIL money and playing the transfer portal and all of that is all part of the equation as well.
Penn State's in a good spot for the class of with 2024 currently present. 2025 is shaping up to be what it is, and I mean, might as well rattle them all off here since I have them listed. But Marcus Blaze, PJ Duke, William Hankel, Asher Cunningham, Nate Desmond, Dalton Perry. I mean, those are all in the top 50 according to Flow Wrestling. And then 2026 has Sam Herring. So the same thing that we talk about with, Bo Bassett can recruit to Iowa. Well, Sam Herring can do the same thing. Jax Forrest and Melvin Miller. Keegan Bassett, right? That's something that I pointed out, that Bo's got a younger brother, that you got to make room for him as well. There's Eli Herring as well here. So Penn State, it's to sum it all up, Penn State and Iowa are simply trading punches when it comes to recruiting for the class of 2026.
Yeah, and listen, I think again, you got to fill 10 spots now on the wrestling roster. So all of these teams are trying to get the best possible kid they can each year at each weight. And again, the game has changed a little bit because it used to be you're kind of looking at a 5-year period, and from a recruiting standpoint, all right, who do I think you wouldn't necessarily go after the best kid at every weight every year, because again, you had 9.9 scholarships. So it's like, well, we might hold off and not give the number one kid in this class a scholarship offer or as big a one as you might think, because we think this kid that's coming in the next year's class is going to be, it projects better collegiately long term, and we think head to head that could match up, or even 2 years down the road. Now that's changed a little bit here, I think, with the loosening up of the scholarships, where I think now you can look more consistently at, hey, let's try to get as many of these top kids as we can in each year. But the other part of this, Zach, is, again, you still only have 10 starting spots. And
it's not like football where you have a depth chart.
It's a nice problem for Penn State to have, and it's a problem that every coach would love to be faced with. But it is nonetheless a problem because, again, they have 15, 16 kids that you're looking at as, man, that guy could be a star collegiately. Well, with 10 starting spots, that means, there's 5 or 6 guys there that were thinking they were going to be stars collegiately, that, at least at the moment, as you look at it, looks like they're going to be on the bench behind a starter. So, again, you're not going to turn kids away because, oh, no, we already have a great wrestler there. You want to get as many guys in there and build as much depth and get that competition as high as you can in the room. But again, with the transfer portal, with the NIL opportunities and everything else, I think, you're going to see some movement on a fairly regular basis with some from top program to top program over the course of the next, 5 or 6 years anyway.
A lot of great dialogue in there between Bo Bassett's commitment and then how Penn State approaches its recruiting, where its recruiting is, and NIL, of course, as well. Let's get back to the present with Penn State and Michigan. There's another Bryce Jordan Center dual meet. Penn State should win this one convincingly, but there's a potential NCAA title matchup at 197 pounds. Josh Barr's got his work cut out from him. Well, for him, we'll tell you more about it after a word from our sponsors. And today's show is also brought to you by PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun, simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game, where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw for 1 yard to win. Then pair that with one more correct pick and you're cashing out. This week, when I'm looking at the board and selecting more I'm looking at Travis Kelce on receiving yards and more for a quarterback's passing yards. And there are other options to choose from on the board, including Travis Kelce. Do you think he'll have more or less than his receiving yards projection? Jalen Hurts, the other quarterback in this game. Do you think he'll have more or less on his passing yards projection? And the best part of all of this, fast, safe withdrawals. When you win, your cash is in your account in as little as 15 minutes. Check out the promos tabs to tail any of the super sweet Millie winner big game lineups. And if you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you could win a split of 1 million in promo funds. Download the app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is PrizePicks. Run your game. Jeff, I want to start off by saying this to continue into our final segment. This was not I've been keeping tabs on Michigan because, right, it's Jacob Cardenas versus Josh Barr. This is a Big Ten. This is an NCAA potential championship. And then going through this Michigan roster, and this is just not the Wolverines team that I guess I was expecting coming into the Bryce Jordan Center this upcoming Friday. Penn State does what it does to Iowa, 30-8. And Michigan's just not going to, unfortunately, provide remotely a similar level of competition. So I was kind of completely shocked that it's Josh Barr, Jacob Cardenas. We'll talk about Beau Bartlett and Sergio Lemley, but this is not the Michigan lineup that I'm used to. Up and down, they had some pretty respectable, comparable competition.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a substantially down year for Michigan. You knew they were going to drop off a bit from last year, but I think probably internally they're a little disappointed with how substantial this drop has been from last year to this. Now, again, with the transfer portal and with the world we're living in, could they be right back in the mix again next year? Mm-hmm. I will have to see how everything plays out. But yeah, this year, I think they're going to have a tough time making any kind of a run at a top 10 finish at the NCAAs. And I think, that they have some good balance in the lineup, but they really don't have a lot of top end firepower. I mean, I think best case scenario, and I think it's a bit of a stretch, truthfully, but best case scenario, I think they'd get 4 All-Americans this year. And I think it's much more likely that they'll end up with 2 or 3 on the podium.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think Sergio Lemley's in there. Obviously, Jacob Cardenas could win an NCAA title. And then Josh Heinzelman at heavyweight there. Very, very strong competitor, even though Greg Kirkfleet, I think there's a significant gap between Steve Singh, Kirkfleet, Wyatt Hendrickson, for example, compared to Michigan's heavyweight. So let's talk about the matchup that everybody's going to have circled for right reason. Jacob Cardenas versus Josh Barr. We saw Josh Barr, I don't want to say be humbled, but I felt like there was a little bit of a gap between Stephen Buchanan and him. And I think that has more so to do with the way the match unfolded, because Buchanan escapes, still has the riding point advantage there. And then it becomes, sudden victories on the table to Barr. You need a takedown. So is Barr kind of further away from Buchanan and Cardenas, or is he still right there, and Ferrari as well? Is he within this group of 4, or is it those 3 and then Barr's kind of chasing after them?
Yeah, no, I think Barr is right there. I think this was a very good learning experience against Buchanan. Again, it was 3 seconds, and give Buchanan credit. I mean, I'm not. Mm-hmm. He knew the situation. Buchanan did, and did what he needed to do to make sure he got that riding time up there and put the onus on Barr. And Barr, to his credit, went for it and tried to get the go-ahead takedown, and ended up getting the, giving up the takedown to kind of put it away for Buchanan. But that's just good top-notch wrestling. And I think Josh Barr, showed that he is right there. Now, it is a difference between being close and over the hump against a guy like that. I like Josh Barr's chances still of winning a national title, and I think this will be another really good test on Friday night. And I think it's regardless of outcome, and I probably say this too frequently, but it's the truth. I I'm I think Penn State is less concerned, and I'm less concerned about the result than just getting the
Yeah.
feel for these guys and getting the opportunity to compete. Because the adjustments, again, both ways are going to be made, and a win or a loss here doesn't preclude anything from happening the other way when you get to Big Tens or NCAAs. So I think this is going to be another great match, a great opportunity to see two elite guys going at it. And, in my mind, it is a kind of a four-man race. And, there's probably another couple of guys that could sneak in there as well if they get a hot tournament at the end of the year. But in my mind, it's kind of a four horse race there at 197. I think AJ Ferrari, just because he's not seen as often here on our side of the country,
Yeah.
almost ridiculously a forgotten man here. In my mind, probably I would consider him still the favorite to win the title, but certainly I think Buchanan, Cardenas, and Barr are all capable of winning a match against him and against each other in that grouping. So I think it's going to be a fun race to watch, and I think this particular bout on Friday night will be another really good test for Josh, and I think an important stepping stone toward his goals here at the end of the season.
It will certainly be close. And Cardenas is a much different wrestler because when you look at the comparable opponents, he's gone up against Michael Beard quite a few times in his career, and we saw what Josh Barr was able to accomplish against Michael Beard with a major decision. And Cardenas has lost to Beard in the past. So I am fully anticipating that this one is going to be another 4-1 type of situation. Maybe it's maybe 5-2. I'm not sure. This could go into sudden victory for all we know. But I really like this one. It's not so much about the previous result. It's the follow-up to that result, like Luke Lillidahl, and the challenge doesn't get any tougher for Barr with number 1 Stephen Buchanan to number 2 Jacob Cardenas. This is inside with a week-long gap. It is comparable to an NCAA tournament, and heck, they could face. He could see this route in the Big Ten tournament as well. Jeff, let's jump to Beau Bartlett and Sergio Lemley to finish it all off here, because this is kind of the other matchup where it's a toss-up. Penn State, it's on the table to shut out Michigan. Anytime Penn State steps up to the mat, a shutout is on the table. Yes, even against an Iowa team as well. But Sergio Lemley, I think is severely underrated from the outsider's perspective. He deserves a lot more credit than maybe he gets. And if Beau Bartlett doesn't have his best day, Sergio Lemley could certainly pull off an upset.
Yeah, Lemley is really dangerous. He's maybe not quite as consistent as some of the other top contenders there are, but Lemley is just has a lot of funk to his game. He's a guy that can score in a lot of different ways, and if he's on, he is extremely dangerous. And so I think this is an intriguing style clash and an intriguing matchup because of the different ways these two kind of approach their games, and I think it should be an entertaining bout and a really good test for Beau Bartlett at this stage of the season. I think Beau has been really steady, and I certainly like his chances of coming out on top on Friday night. But Lemley, again, can he get that one move that puts you in a lot of trouble and get 7 points on the board in a hurry? Yeah, he is certainly capable of that. And so I do think it's a match that Beau Bartlett and Penn State approach with some wariness.
Penn State will be favored in at least 9 out of the 10 bouts, could potentially sweep all 10 against Michigan. This one goes down 6 p.m. in the Bryce Jordan Center. Jeff, you have the call at 5:45 on GoPSUSports.com with your pre-match coverage, and then going right into the first bout with what we anticipate Luke Lillidahl at 125. Back-to-back BJC duels. That is such a nice thing. And then they got the Sunday duel to follow it up after that. That's going to do it for this one here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Thank you to each and every one of you for checking out this episode. Thank you to Jeff Byers, once again, the voice of Penn State Wrestling, for taking time out of his busy schedule to chat with us about Penn State Wrestling. You can find his work outside of wrestling coverage down in the description below. Jeff, thank you so much for the time again. As always, I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach.
And again, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. For your second listen and watch, got to check out Locked On Big Ten with host Craig Sheeman. Craig puts the Big Ten first, talks about everybody: Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, all 18 schools in the Big Ten, and covers them very thoroughly. You can find Locked On Big Ten available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.